the fact of the matter is, it is truthful that in America, there are 50 to 100 different Jewish organizations at different levels. Some of them are communal, some of them are national, some of them are international, who do convene to discuss what is best for the Jewish people. And oftentimes in that conversation is Israel and what is best for the relationship with Israel and how can America protect Israel. Let's just have a conversation about, is that dynamic helpful for America? And so let's just have an open and honest conversation about that without these labels of conspiracy theories, because the Jews are obviously conspiring. It's not a theory. The World Jewish Congress is the conspiring of Jews worldwide to discuss what is best for Jews. The Republican Jewish Committee is another example of that. The Anti-Defamation League is an American-based organization founded by Jews for the specific mission of defending the Jews against so-called defamations, anti-Semitism, protecting the reputation and the well-being of Jewish people. Are there similar groups to the scale of 50 to 100 of them for Qataris or Russians or Chinese or whoever else it is you think is operating as a foreign nation in America? Is there an oligarchy of Russian billionaires in Silicon Valley, in Wall Street, in media? Is there an oligarchy of Chinese or Qatari? But obviously no, and we all know that.
The destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua, here with you for another one of our happy hour sessions. Sitting outside of the gym, getting caffeinated before we go in here for a back day. Got to do our mental gains before we go and make our physical gains. You guys know the drill. Got a couple of subjects on my mind that I'm looking forward to talking through with you guys today. Two very, very important milestones in the America First movement that we're going to be discussing. I would like to discuss first, pretty briefly, Donald Trump's non-disavowal. We're not going to call it an endorsement or support, but he at least was adamant that he would not disavow Tucker Carlson's decision to platform Nick Fuentes. So Trump was asked directly about this by a journalist, and I'll drop the clip in here.
Interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
Decide what?
And so, in summary, he says, listen, Tucker Carlson is a journalist. I respect Tucker as a person. Tucker has extreme influence over the Republican base, the Donald Trump voters. So I'm not about to throw Tucker Carlson under the bus. And by the way, this is what journalists do. This is their actual profession. They sit down to people, particularly those who are politically minded or socially minded, and they exchange ideas, and they're not meant to agree with each other. Sometimes it's controversial. Sometimes people's feelings might be hurt by the conversation that is had. But that's the point of the conversation, is to better understand the different sides or the different factions, the different conflicts of interest that the sides and factions may have. And so that was obviously the intent of the Tucker Fuentes interview. And Donald Trump said, why would I have a problem with that? This is exactly what Tucker should be doing. And hey, get out there and spread the message. And so the reason that this non-disavowal is particularly important is because in the 3 weeks aftermath of the Tuckercaust, we saw every mainstream commercial Con Inc. influencer who is pro-Israel come out and say, as a MAGA conservative, meaning as a Trump endorsing, Make America Great Again, politically minded individual, you can't be MAGA, you can't be pro-America, you can't be Trump if you were okay with Tucker Carlson hosting this anti-Semite Nazi Jew hater. And they try to fuse the two together and say, if you support Tucker's decision to platform Nick, then you are not Make America Great Again. You are not on the Trump train. You're not really conservative. That was the language coming from the likes of Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Josh Hammer, Laura Loomer, all of the angry Jew Zionists or Christian Zionists who have some kind of platform. They were all out there saying this, that it is fundamentally anti-MAGA to entertain a conversation about world Jewry or Jewish identity or to insinuate that the relationship we have with Israel is not for the greater good of America or Americans. Well, here you have the founder of the Make America Great Again political platform, Donald Trump, not just the figurehead, but the founder, the leader, oh, by the way, the two-time president of the country, saying, actually, no, it doesn't undermine it whatsoever. It represents the core principle of America, of the freedom of speech, the free marketplace of ideas. Let the best man win. Just get the information out there. And so basically everybody who spent the last 3 weeks telling you that this isn't MAGA and this isn't what Trump would want, well, they just immediately lost all the credibility that some people think they had. We knew that they were untrustworthy, that they have Zionist priorities or Jewish culture, community, religion, nation, all of those things that are tied up in Jewish identity. They care far more about those things than Americans or America. Well, this exposes that they were simply trying to ride on the coattails of Donald Trump and MAGA and try to skin suit as pro-America whilst still simultaneously advocating for things that are very obviously not pro-America. And so the rhetoric has now been exposed to be completely disingenuous and factually flying in the face of the leader of MAGA, the MAGA movement that belongs to Donald Trump, that was founded by Donald Trump. It's over. The conversation about is it MAGA or not, to have Nick Fuentes on your show or to talk about the subjects Nick talks about, in particular, the relationship with Israel, Jewish identity, even white identity. Actually, no, it's not anti-MAGA to talk about those things. And that's coming directly from the horse's mouth, the founder of MAGA. Got real quiet after that, because now what are all these people supposed to do who have been Trump loyalists who say that you have to be on board with Trump, which means being pro-Israel, which means banning anti-Semitism everywhere on social media, college campuses, not platforming people who demonstrate, quote, anti-Semitism. Well, that debate is now over, and we have to thank Donald Trump for that. And Nick has talked at great length about our criticisms of Donald Trump, his failure to deliver on basically all of his campaign promises, ranging from Doge and the savings of trillions of dollars in our annual budget, ranging from the Epstein files, ranging from ending the federal income tax, ranging from mass deportations, ranging from ending the war in Ukraine and Russia in 24 hours, ranging from no new wars, kicking off one in Venezuela, bombing Iran. The Trump presidency has failed to deliver basically everything that it promised us. And so there wasn't much optimism in terms of what juice is going to be left of the Trump presidency. And the second subject we're going to get into is Trump's legacy in light of all of this, in his complete and utter failing to deliver any of the most important campaign promises of 2016 and in 2024. And even worse, his self-sabotage, decisions he made in how he handled the Epstein files. His legacy and reputation are now 99% assured to be a disappointment. MAGA did not materialize any meaningful advances for heritage Americans, the working man, the working class, white Christian individual, the heritage people who created, founded, sustained, fought, and died for, and financed this country. Those people didn't get what they wanted. 10 straight years of trying to do everything we can to trust the plan, to just get Trump back in office. It'll be different this time. Complete and utter disappointment in every possible way, okay? That's just what has to be said about the Trump legacy, the MAGA legacy. But you got to call a spade a spade. When somebody does something that is actually righteous, that is representative of the people and our will, you have to say thank you. And so our message to Donald Trump is, for all of the failings that you have failed to deliver, this one was big, because the simple protection, the freedom of speech that our country must preserve in order to facilitate the changes that must happen, that has to be fought for at every single level, but most importantly by the leaders of our country. And there is no leader higher than the president of our country. And for him to come down and say, this is officially not in contradiction of Make America Great Again. Tucker talking to whoever he wants to, including the likes of Nick Fuentes, has no ill effect on America. In fact, the opposite would be true. To say that we can't talk to any individual because of what they believe, because of what their political priorities are or religious priorities or whatever, to say that they are disallowed to have a seat at the table when it comes to politics or social policy or anything like that, that's actually what is anti-American. So Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and all these other people saying these people really shouldn't be able to, one, speak, or they shouldn't even be able to have jobs. They shouldn't be allowed into our institutions, whether that's government, academia, media. The rug just got pulled out from underneath all of them. And that's a beautiful thing. And we have to thank Donald Trump for that. You know, it's kind of sad. It's a low bar to say, thank you, President, for, protecting free speech. But with the string of disappointments, the pattern of failing to deliver, for him to stand up and actually land this one correctly. And he didn't have to say anything. He could just say, I don't comment on it, which would still be similar to refusing to disavow. But he even said, get the information out there. Get everybody's opinion out there. Let the people decide. And you can use your imagination in terms of what information he was implying should get out there. Well, the information that Nick has, the opinions that Nick has, the priorities stack ranked as America First puts forth. America must be a sovereign country. America should be a majority white country led primarily by white people, and America must retain its Christian moral framework. Those are the core principles of America First. And so if the message from the president of the country is let Nick get the information of what America First stands for out there, well, this is now the conversation. Are we going to have a sovereign country? Are we going to allow a foreign nation to blackmail financially or otherwise all of our politicians, all of our leaders of industry? Are we going to allow that to continue to happen? Or are we going to actually do something about this broken system? Well, that begins with a conversation. That begins with actually acknowledging that this is a problem, and it is a unique problem as it relates to Israel. People say, oh, well, Russia meddles in our politics. China meddles in our politics. Donald Trump himself gets financial backing from Qatar. All right, well, are there a bunch of Qataris and Russians and Chinese people running our industries? Is there a Republican, Russian, or Chinese or Qatari conference? No, but there is an RJC, right? There is a World Jewish Congress who have American billionaire Jews going out there and talking about what is best for Jews in America and worldwide. Those things are done in broad daylight. Those are done by Americans. Those are done in the name of advancing or protecting Jewish people wherever they may be, but in particular in America. And so if those things are happening in broad daylight, why not allow us to talk about them? Why do you have to say that these things are anti-Semitic tropes or Nazism to simply have open conversations about? The fact of the matter is, it is truthful that in America, there are 50 to 100 different Jewish organizations at different levels. Some of them are communal, some of them are national, some of them are international, who do convene to discuss what is best for the Jewish people. And oftentimes in that conversation is Israel and what is best for the relationship with Israel and how can America protect Israel. And so let's just have a conversation about, is that dynamic helpful for America? And so let's just have an open and honest conversation about that without these labels of conspiracy theories, because the Jews are obviously conspiring. It's not a theory. The World Jewish Congress is the conspiring of Jews worldwide to discuss what is best for Jews. The Republican Jewish Committee is another example of that. The Anti-Defamation League is an American-based organization founded by Jews for the specific mission of defending the Jews against so-called defamations, anti-Semitism, protecting the reputation and the well-being of Jewish people. Are there similar groups to the scale of 50 to 100 of them for Qataris or Russians or Chinese or whoever else it is you think is operating as a foreign nation in America? Is there an oligarchy of Russian billionaires in Silicon Valley, in Wall Street, in media? Is there an oligarchy of Chinese or Qatari? These are the big nations that are commonly named in terms of foreign influence. That's why I use them for example. But obviously no, and we all know that.
Meeting the people that you actually want to meet this day and age is basically impossible. Well, I have a solution to these problems. You're wearing your anti-Zog merchandise, that cutie from across the gym. She knows what the Zog is. She knows that Save Europa is code for white genocide. Or if it's somebody of the same gender, boom, you just got yourself a new best friend. This is your opportunity. Everybody's always complaining about how hard it is to find people who know what's really going on. Well, this is it. This is how you broadcast those beliefs to the world.
And so this does need to be discussed, and Donald Trump has now endorsed this discussion. And so that's a good shift forward in the Overton window that is worth celebration. Now that it has been officially deemed by Trump to be pro-America, to simply talk about Israel and their influence or some of these more controversial subjects, there is one other call to action that Nick talked through. And I've mentioned this before when Nick was under attack, by the way, when people were throwing him under the bus. If you guys remember, after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, everybody expected Nick to immediately point the finger at Israel and make it as simple as that. No investigation needed, no evidence needed. Obviously, there's enough circumstantial evidence to say that Israel wanted him dead. And he has somewhat wavered in how confident he is with the official narrative and whether or not perhaps Israel did it. Where he landed on that subject is not the point of discussion. I remember saying at that time, when there was a dogpile on Nick, at the same time that he was having this huge surge in popularity, slightly before the Tucker Carlson thing, when his platform was red hot, these events leading up to the big Tucker Carlson interview, he had already done the Candace Owens interview. He was really already going mainstream before Tucker platformed him. And while he was achieving that widespread notoriety, because of his take on not immediately blaming Israel for Charlie Kirk, there were many, many people with large platforms who were saying, Nick Fuentes got the call. He got the call from the Mossad. He got the call from his Jewish handlers. He's been a Fed this whole time. And I was saying at that time, all of you need to be writing down the names of people who said that Nick is a Fed or that he got the call, because those people cannot be trusted. They don't have the proper discernment. They haven't been watching Nick long enough. They haven't actually listened to his argument in full form to say, listen, Israel may have done it, but we don't have hardcore proof of that. We have circumstantial proof. When it comes to the official narrative, they are producing some things, DNA samples, the actual gun itself, testimony from the family, so on and so forth. There is a pile of evidence, whether or not you think it's compelling enough, whether or not you think it's manufactured enough. There is a good bit of evidence that points to the mainstream narrative that Robinson, the leftist, tranny-loving psychopath, lone gunman, killed Charlie Kirk. It's a possibility. We're not sure. There's a probability for that, and there's a probability for some other explanation, which could be that Israel saw how Charlie Kirk was moving in his mindset, in his protectionism for Israel, that he was obviously disgruntled with how he was being treated by Jewish individuals in terms of revoking their financial backing for Turning Point, because he platformed Tucker Carlson and because he platformed Dave Smith and had some of those anti-Israel conversations, the text messages from Candace Owens. You know, a lot of this information that came out, it's not evidence, it's just context. And so, yes, there is contextual, circumstantial reason to say that Israel would have wanted Charlie Kirk dead. But as a counter argument, Nick pointed to many different examples of until Charlie Kirk's dying day, talking about how he would not abandon Israel and that the Jews are God's chosen people. And so arguments both ways. I don't care what you think. You shouldn't care what I think. What you should stop and focus on is, even if Nick came to the conclusion that said, I just haven't seen enough hardcore evidence, the contextual arguments are there. I get it. I understand it. I can see the motive and the opportunity that Israel had, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be 100% sure that that's what happened, because as if we have to remind anybody that there is a very real, militant, violent left side of the country. The same individuals who would go to assassinate Nick Fuentes, the same guy, Luigi Mangione, who would go and kill the healthcare CEO, the Black Lives Matter protesters who were burning down entire cities, the people who are protesting against ICE. Okay, it's very real that there are violent leftists who wanted Charlie Kirk dead. There's plenty of contextual evidence to say that that is also a possibility. Long story short here, the point that I'm getting across is that because Nick didn't automatically assume it was Israel, people were saying he was a Fed. And so I said to everybody, you don't have to know or jump onto either side of this argument, but what you should be doing in the meantime is take note of everybody who is calling Nick a Fed right now, because I pointed out, even while all of this was happening, even while Nick was forced to defend his position that I'm not sure that Israel did this, on a nightly basis, he was going on his show and saying, international Jewry is the foremost problem in our country. Jewish identity is fundamentally contradictory to Europeans and Christianity. Does that sound like somebody who got the call? He continued to talk about how AIPAC and Israelis are operating within our country to the benefit of Israel, to the detriment of our country. Is that somebody who got the call? He is continuing to talk about how Jews see Goyim as non-human. Is that somebody who got the call? And so there was plenty of evidence, 10 years worth and up to the moment, saying, obviously, Nick did not get the call. He has a contrarian opinion about this one circumstance. But looking at the big picture, as I said, on a nightly basis, this guy is not helping Israel. He is not helping the Jews. For him to say, I'm just not so sure that this was Israel, could be. He never said it's not a possibility. But simply taking a stance that wasn't 100% all the way, I agree with Candace Owens, despite continuing to be critical of Jewish influence in this country, despite continuing to be the #1 anti-Semite in the country, despite 10 years of a portfolio of the exact same consistent criticism of Jewish individuals, Jewish nepotism, the Jewish religion, their nation, it still wasn't enough. It was still, Nick got the call, he's a Fed. And so I wanted everybody to take note of those people, because those people don't have the intellectual chops to be leaders in this movement. The same thing applies now, and this is what Nick has called for. Take note of everybody who disavowed Tucker Carlson over him platforming Nick Fuentes. Because not only have you now seen that they are in contradiction to even Donald Trump, who we don't see as the authoritative source on who is America first, because he's clearly not, but Tucker Carlson, who is actually advocating for America first, not as explicitly defined as we would like it to be in terms of ethnicity and religion, but if somebody is willing to say, you guys should stop listening to Tucker Carlson because he talked to Nick Fuentes, obviously that person is not on our team. So maintain a historical record. Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, Laura Loomer, all these other Zionists who have gone out there and said Tucker is on team anti-Semite now. At this point in time, if there are individuals who you have seen publicly demean Tucker Carlson for his allowance of Nick to be on his show, then you need to remember that in the same way that you need to remember the people who were calling Nick a Fed. And so that's just one more piece of homework where we got to keep the receipts. It's important. That shows you who is actually on the same wavelength, who is doing their homework, who knows the lore, who has an accurate reading of the tea leaves, who's thinking critically. So, moving on.
The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist-occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs, there are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first and Christ is king.